And welcome back to episode number 73 of Raise the Band podcast. I am one of your three co hosts, as usual, Matt Couture, Ben Dirth, Zach Brewitt. Boys, how we doing?
Doing well.
Good draft season, I think we can say, is officially upon us. I know we've been talking about it for 6 months, but the draft is in 9 days. Yeah, 7 + 2 is 9. Yep, 9 days. Yeah, feeling good down to the wire here.
Yeah.
Feeling excited?
Yeah, excited. Curious. It's a weird. I feel like it's a weird draft year. It's not a normal draft year, I guess I should say that. So I'll be interested to see how it plays out because there's really no consensus after the first two picks. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more of a consensus now at 3, but there's really no consensus. There's no legit consensus after the third pick. So it'll be interesting to see how the draft actually plays out because who knows?
Yeah,
a lot hangs in the balance on that third pick for sure.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into that obviously a little bit later. I do want to start off with some rare but needed Celtics talk. The Boston Celtics, the number 2 seed in the East, they're currently awaiting the winner of tonight's game between the Hawks and the Magic. Boys, how are we feeling about the playoffs as a whole, the Celtics heading into the playoffs, and their potential round 1 matchup here?
Feeling good. I was talking off air and at Matt's request saved some talking points. So obviously the winner tonight is the 7 seed, Hawks Magic. An oddity that feel free to fact check me. I would guess that the scenario I will unpack has probably never happened in the history of the NBA. The Orlando Magic at 41-41 won the Southeast Division, and they are the 7 seed. For those who don't understand how the NBA playoffs work nowadays, I believe this is like the 4th or 5th year, including the play-in tournament. So the NBA does not seed based on division champ. It's strictly based on your record. So the Magic at 41-41 won the Southeast Division, and they are the 7 seed, which means if they lose tonight and then lose, I think they play Friday because the second play-in game for the East is tomorrow. So if they win tonight, if they lose tonight and then lose Friday to whoever wins the Heat Bulls game, you will have a division winner in the NBA not make the actual tournament. Which I would guess, based on the fact that the play-in tournament is relatively brand new, would be a first in the history of the NBA playoffs. Certainly an oddity. You could theoretically see no team from the Southeast Division make the tournament. The Heat are the only other team from the Southeast that are in. They are the 10 seed. So if they lose either tomorrow or Friday, as well as the Magic losing twice, well, I guess the Heat would have to lose tonight, and then the Bulls would have to beat the Magic Friday. You could have one division not represented in the playoffs. With that said, talking to several buddies of mine who are pretty big Celtics fans, this is kind of like at a bare minimum, it's like Eastern Conference Finals or bust. There's zero reason this team should not. I don't want to say sleepwalk their way. I know Jaylen Brown's dealing with a knee injury, right? So they rested him down the stretch. Obviously Porzingis has had his history with injuries, but this team should not have any issues getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals in all likelihood against Cleveland. That certainly is queued up for a hell of an Eastern Conference Finals. Because assuming that they get past their first round game, whether it's Atlanta or Orlando, they would then play the winner of the Knicks-Pistons series. Neither of those teams scares me. This feels a lot like last year, where they should be getting to the Eastern Conference Finals by losing no more than 2 games. Could easily see a gentleman's sweep, especially where they're a little banged up going into the playoffs, and they realize they don't really have to flip the switch on full at this point. But they should be taking care of business first 2 rounds. again, they should be winning those series at least in either 4-0 or 4-1. And then, obviously Cleveland's very, very good. Could they lose in 7? Sure, especially if they're not fully healthy going into that series. But they're my pick to win the East. But I mean, there's no reason that a Celtics fan should feel anything other than confident that they should be battling for another Eastern Conference championship this year.
Yep, Zach.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the only team outside of the Cavs that gives me, I don't even want to say I think I'm a little bit afraid of them, but is the Magic. Like, we haven't played well against them for whatever reason this year. In the past 2 years, we're 500 against them. I know the last game we played in beginning of April, we rested our starters and got blown out. So obviously that isn't really a real, sample. But yeah, outside of the Cavs, the Magic is the only team that, again, would give us fits. Now, I agree with Ben. I think that's going to be more of a gentleman's sweep. Kind of similar to how we saw the Pacers series last year, which was a full sweep. But, if you watch the actual each individual game, they give us fits. It wasn't as easy as it might have looked on paper. And Jaylen Brown's knee certainly does give me, some cause for concern. Listening to Gasper and Murray, I believe it was last weekend. He kind of equated it to some other, recent knee injuries that a lot of our stars have had. Kemba Walker was the one that came to mind the most, where they rested him down the stretch. They brought him back in the bubble in 2020, and just kind of fell apart. He wasn't the same player. He wasn't, as explosive as he needed to be. I'm not saying, of course, that that's going to happen with Jaylen, but anytime you hear that, one of your star players has a knee injury, especially somebody as important to the team as Jaylen Brown, certainly gives you cause for concern. I think Gasper said, he posed a question, to Jim Murray, if the Celtics needed to play Jaylen Brown in a similar way that they played Porzingis last year in the finals, do you still give them the same amount of, confidence? And I don't know that I would agree with that. I think Jaylen obviously is much more, intertwined in this offense and much more important than Porzingis is. So if they go that route, I still agree with Ben. I think it's certainly Eastern Conference Finals or bust. But definitely something to keep an eye on, especially if you have both Porzingis and Jaylen Brown battling injuries and things of that nature. But certainly agree with Ben that Eastern Conference Finals are bust, even if we hit some injury turbulence.
Yeah, and I was just looking that up, Zach. I didn't. I was just checking up on the records. The Celtics collectively were 2-4 against the Hawks and Magic this year. They were 1-2 against both teams. To your point, the caveat, last Wednesday's game to me is a throwaway. Because they knew they weren't playing for anything at that point. So, take that with a grain of salt. But if you look back, they lost to Atlanta in the the NBA Cup, whatever they're calling that, the in-season tournament. They lost in the group stage of that tournament. They beat them early. But same thing with the Magic. They took care of business against them. Let's see, I'm trying to find it here. Back in whatever, I guess it doesn't really matter. But so they were more so in regular season games. I know that the NBA Cup games count towards your record. But in the regular season games, not the Cup games, they were 1-1 against both teams. And again, I'm kind of tossing out the game that they played last Wednesday. The defense was still there. They only gave up 96 points, which is, by modern NBA standards, a good defensive game. But clearly, we're not really interested in scoring points. This is what did they finish? Second in the NBA in scoring in, when it mattered, something like that.
They ran away with it.
Yeah.
So, they should be fine. But odd that they struggled with the bottom of the Eastern Conference this year.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the Hawks too.
You have to take it with a bit of, anytime you play the matchups that are against not the big contenders, in a season like this for the Celtics, you gotta have to look at with a little bit of a grain of salt in the sense that, like, first of all, the Celtics were just continuously rotating rest for players. The Celtics are in a situation now where the regular season doesn't really matter. They never really push too hard to try to get into the 1 seed. Like the regular season doesn't matter for the Celtics.
No.
I'll take it a step further. This isn't an Eastern Conference Finals or bust team. This is a repeat as NBA champions or bust team. Now, if they make it to the finals and they lose in 6 or 7 to a OKC or Golden State or an LA or Houston, like there's some really good teams out west.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and call it like some colossal failure that they didn't win the NBA championship, but this team is the best team in basketball when they're healthy. And now we talked about Jaylen Brown's injury; his knee is banged up, but even without Jaylen Brown, this team is a top 5 team in basketball. So when you add them to the mix, I think that they're a clear-cut best team in basketball. You're facing an East that's really not too strong. They should kind of be able to get past whether it's Atlanta or the Magic pretty easily. If they turn, and I think they face the winner of
Knicks Pistons.
Is it Knicks Pistons?
Yeah, they're the 2 seed, so they would play the winner of the 3-6. And I was looking it up. They did
Does
not
it reseed though?
No, the NBA playoffs do not reseed.
Okay, I always forget.
Yeah, NHL used to before they went to the current format where it's like basically like a divisional playoff until you get to the conference finals. But looking it up, the Celtics were 7-0 combined against the Knicks and Pistons this year. So,
I mean, the Knicks don't worry me at all. The Pistons don't worry me at all. I mean, the Knicks, they're a decent basketball team, but they put all their chips into Mikal Bridges and Cat. Nothing
they
against them.
decimated their depth with that trade. Sure.
Nothing against them too, but those are they're not carrying you to a championship. The Knicks were 0-14 against the top 3 teams in the NBA or something like that. They're just not a worry of mine. So I look at this scenario and I do think that they'll beat the Pistons. The Pistons good on I'm having a mind blank of what his name is, the coach that came from Cleveland last year. That's in Detroit. He's done a great job bringing them into a situation where no one really expected the Pistons to be in the playoffs.
JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, there you go. So props on him to that, but they're just neither team are really competition. So when I look at this and I say I think that they should realistically have max 9 games, maybe 10, but max 9 games to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then you look at that and you're saying, odds are you're going to face Cleveland because they've been really good all year. And I just think in the end, the Celtics are a better basketball team. They should beat them in no more than 6 games. And then you get into the finals and, I won't push out that far because it's a complete toss-up of who comes out of the West. But like I said, they're the best team in basketball. So really anything below a championship is, if not a complete failure, a borderline failure. Even if you lose in the championship, I think it's a failure. It's just when, if they lose in 6 or 7 to whoever comes out of the West, I'm not going to be slamming down doors saying it was some major choke job.
No, I agree. If they go, let's say they go, they miss the finals, but they go 7 with the Cavs only. I agree. Any other team besides them, I would say epic failure, collapse, whatever. But would you then look at the team the same way as a massive failure if they go 7 with the Cavs, lose by a handful of points, whatever, and then the Cavs go on to win the championship? I tend to agree with you that it would be.
Assuming health, like let's just assume Jaylen Brown is at least able to play like 25, 30 minutes a game. And KP's healthy and everybody else is healthy. Yeah, I mean, I think losing to the Cavs is a failure. I mean, we could throw out the words like massive failure, colossal failure, like somewhat like I would say it's a failure. Like in the end, like I said, they're the best team in basketball. So if they do not get to the finals, that's without question a failure.
Yeah,
there's no way to kind of dance around that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And the only reason I said like getting to the Eastern Conference Finals at a bare minimum, like if they lose to the Cavs in 7 games, I would say definitely a disappointment. I mean, obviously losing in 7 means, you lost in their building. One thing I will say though is the Celtics, as far as I know, are the best road team in the NBA. They did split with Cleveland, both in the full regular season as well as home and road. They were 1-1 here and in Cleveland for 2-2 overall. So like that to me feels like a 6 or 7 game, like just kind of like knock it out type series. But with the Celtics being strong on the road, I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as what the home and road splits were. But with them being the best road team in basketball, like they probably should, like it is a failure to not make the NBA Finals. So yeah, I have it up here. So the Celtics were 28-13 at home and 33-8 on the road. The only other team that did not lose double-digit games away from their own building was the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were also 32-8. So they were a half a game worse than the Celtics. But
yeah.
So if it's Celtics Thunder NBA Finals and it's the Celtics lose a competitive 6 or 7 game series, like that to me doesn't scream failure. Especially with how good OKC is. Shai is probably going to win the NBA MVP award. But yeah, I mean, I would say failure to not get there. But I would say how the East Finals goes would dictate the level of failure. Like if they lose a competitive 7 game series, it's like they failed to get back to the NBA Finals as the most talented team. But I wouldn't call it's not a like. And not that they would, but it's not like a burn the garden to the ground, blow up the roster.
There's levels of failures.
Yeah, if they don't get there, like heads will roll if they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Heads will roll if
colossal failure if you lost to the Magic or Hawks. Like huge failure if you're losing to the Knicks
or the Pistons.
Unless you bring I would say it's a big failure to lose to the Cavs unless it's like Game 7 you lose by on a game-winning shot, something like that, and then it's just like a failure. And then anything after that, I still think even losing the finals, it's a failure. You were the best team and your job's to win the championship, so you failed on that mission. But unless they get there embarrassed, assuming they don't get embarrassed in the championship, it's it falls into the realm of just a basic failure of what you're trying to achieve.
So, I think anything outside of a finals loss or Cavs Eastern Conference Finals in Game 7 by 5 points, it's a failure. Now, if you're losing to the Knicks in the conference finals, that's a failure. If you're losing to, I don't know, whoever else is going to make it to the conference finals, that's a failure too. So I agree. I think anything short of a finals loss or failure with the lowercase f, Eastern Conference Finals to the Cavs in Game 7, then I agree. But I agree, Ben. It's not going to be a heads will roll. Brad Stevens losing his job. Joe Mazzulla's out the door. It's going to be what the hell happened? How did this get to this point?
Yeah. And I would say if you say they lose in 7 games to OKC in an NBA Finals, that's I don't even know if that's really a failure. That to me falls into the realm of well, that was disappointing. That you got to, but it's not say they lose if they lose to the NBA Finals to a Nuggets or even a Lakers. I know the Lakers have gone on a tear since they traded for Luka, but if they lose to the 3, 4, or 5 seed out of the West, that is a failure. OKC is good enough that losing to them would be disappointing and a little bit of a letdown. But you're still
I
going,
don't know.
okay.
I mean, like the scariest team out west to me might be Golden State. With Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, they can cause issues.
Until Steph Curry retires, I'm never going to take that team for granted.
Honestly, in terms of who I least want to see in the finals,
Golden State.
Yeah. I would say OKC because I think that the best team is right there, but Golden State might be 2. And
Lakers.
LA might be 3. And then it goes Houston 4.
See, I don't even know if Houston scares me. They're so young.
Yeah, that's why they're 4th though. But in the end, they're still a pretty good team. I'll put them 4th, and that's, pretty reasonable considering they're the 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what was it? 1 game separated 2 through 8.
Yeah. Well, and then you got Cerrone, who was on here last week, and shout out Cerrone. I haven't gone back and listened to it yet, but I was told he shouted out our podcast this weekend on Sunday morning on 98.5. But he had the Clippers coming out of the West. That's another team that, if they're healthy, that's a dangerous team to face.
Yeah.
When you have Kawhi and you have Harden, playing, if they're healthy and playing well, that's a really scary 1-2 punch. I think Harden's a bum and a clown, but he's still he could score the basketball. There's no doubt about that.
Still very talented, yeah.
Yeah. So to wrap it all up, obviously, NBA championship or bust is the Celtics. It's been like that since day one. It's been like that since the start of last year, and winning the championship, you only emphasize that there's no success in a season unless they win the championship.
Yeah, especially where being the defending champ, they've set the bar. That is the bar now. Up until last year. Yeah, up until last year with the 6th man of the year. So I like this team to me is, in my opinion, better than last year's team. But whatever. But they've seen how you've set the bar. Up until last year, it was you're really, really good, but you haven't closed the deal yet. Well, now that they've closed the deal, now you have to solidify yourself as, proving that winning it last year was not just a fluke. And I'm not saying they have to win back-to-back titles. Big picture, they should really need to win 1 more within the next couple of years to validate that wasn't just a one-off, and that their legacy is a team that just was super talented but wilted it under the pressure.
Yeah, this team's going to have to break up eventually, but they got this year, probably next year, before they have to make any type of notable decisions. And at that point, they should have at least 2 titles, arguably 3. But all right, I do want to transition to the Boston Red Sox. Well, I don't really want to, but we should.
Yeah.
They have been.
I apologize, Matt. I forgot my paper bag. Got a paper bag.
Yeah, if I had to describe the Red Sox the last 5 to 6 games in one word, I think I'd probably just say ass. That's probably the simple way to go about it.
Right there.
Ass, they've played straight
ass.
Yeah. That's the best way to kind of put it. The rotation has not been very good. Obviously, they're down to 3 plus starters. Bayo, Giolito are supposedly going to be coming back maybe next week. Fitz is now down. But the simple matter of the fact is, Houck went out there and got his ass lit up last night. Possibly the worst start in Red Sox history. 12 runs over 3 innings. Yeah,
I think it was the first time it had ever happened in Red Sox history.
So
2 1/3, 11 hits, 10 earned.
I would say that's not very good, if you ask me. But
sounds like something I would do.
The pitching rotation has been
I can do that.
poor.
Yeah, I can go out there and give up 11 hits and 10 runs. I'll take a league minimum
But-
contract to go do that every 5 days.
I'll take a league minimum contract. I'll do whatever the hell you want. And if you're going to give me a MLB league minimal contract. But no, their bullpen has been okay. Not terrible, but okay. And their lineup has been unbelievably hit or miss. Like Ben, you were saying, like technically their run score are good in an overall sense, but
Third most runs scored in the American League. I had to actually look that up when I heard that stat because I'm like, wait, there's no way that this team has the third best offense in the AL.
It's because they went out like for a week and they were hitting the ball very well. Like they threw up that Sunday night game where the doubleheader, they threw up like 12 runs or whatever it was on St. Louis. But for the last 4 to 5, 6 games, they have been ass. That's going to be the word of the podcast. Yep. And so, like, really, where are you guys on this? Are you panicking? Where's your panic meter 1 through 10? Like, how are you feeling about this team right now?
I'm not panicking, but I'm starting to think Cora is going to be on the hot seat soon because it's continuing to be more of the same thing, right? 4 of 6 years he's been here. He's missed the playoffs. Kind of the same thing happening with kicking the ball around the infield. Errors are racking up. Keeps, platooning players, and I get it. You want to keep bats hot, but like Romy Gonzalez is a starter, dude. He's not. Refsnyder too. Like these guys are pinch hitters and depth pieces, and he's trying to keep their bats hot. Like I get that you're a player's manager, but at some point you got to put the best, roster out there, and those guys aren't it. Everyone else has kind of done their job, right? Henry woke up finally this offseason and spent the money and allowed Breslow to do his thing, which was go trade for Garrett Crochet, giving up real assets for that. Negotiating a hell of a contract for Bregman, who his fielding has been pretty shitty so far, so far. But like Cora is kind of the one who's outside of the players, not holding up his end of the bargain, and it's going to come down to him. I could see him being on the hot seat at some point this year, especially if we turn the corner into May and especially June, July, if we're still kind of doing the same thing, middling around and having the same errors, and hopefully the drive line thing will figure itself out. But right now it's panic meter, to answer your question, about a 4.5, maybe 5. But if it gets into May, June, it'll be about a 6, 7, 8.
If it gets into June, it'll be a freaking 10.
That's fair. If it gets into May, it's a 6, 7, 8. June is full blown 10. Yeah, I agree. That's fair.
Ben, how about you?
So panic meter right now is like a 3.5. It's definitely not been good. I know that you can't really eliminate games, but if you take the 18-run game against St. Louis out of the equation, the Red Sox have 60 runs scored over, let's see, they're 8-10, so 17 games. So if you look at that, number.
Okay, Ben's gone.
What are your thoughts on the matter, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know where you just went, but no, I would say panic meter is a 4 right now.
Yeah,
and I'll bring Ben back up because apparently he's back. I guess. Go ahead, Ben. No, all right. You muted yourself. All right. Anyways, until he gets his shit back going, the panic meter is a 4 right now for me. I would say even closer to a 3, 3.5, 4. Ben was kind of pretty close to it. I think this team will figure it out. They have too much talent to not figure it out. I think Bayo and Giolito will come back and not that I think Bayo's some star, but I think he'll come back and be pretty solid. I think Giolito has a chance to come back and be what he used to be. And that was, a mid to high 3 ERA guy, and that's a really solid middle of the rotation player. So if he could be that for them, those just two are going to be big boosts. Get Sean Newcomb out of this rotation roster. Let him go back to Dracut, Massachusetts, where I heard that he's living right now. He's just not a major league player. He can go to Worcester and be an emergency depth guy at the very least. But the lineup is a little bit what worries me the most. Tristan Casas has been, ass. And, Bregman's been hot and cold. Devers has been pretty good as of late since that initial start. Christian Campbell has been great. He has been on base every game, I think, that he has played. And then you go and look at Duran's having a subpar start to the year. Trevor Story has been picking it up at least a little bit, but when you look at the lineup as a whole, it's just not hitting. And it's a little frustrating because the talent's there. It's not like they're injured too much there. I mean, Wong's gone, but they're not really injured. So what's not clicking? And so it's pretty frustrating, but at the same time, I trust the talent that's there. And I say, they're too good of a lineup to not figure it out. And like you said, Ben, they're technically third in the East in the AL in runs. So it seems a little misleading, but I think they'll figure it out as time goes on. But man, it's I shut it off at 8-1 last night. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm good for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
I saw our friend Lucy's tweet last night. I don't have Nesson anymore because Xfinity bumped them up to the next package. But I saw our friend Lucy's tweet. It was rally caps for a 20-run inning or whatever, and I logged into the ESPN app and I was like, holy shit, it's 14-1 or whatever it is. And then I just never checked in ever again after that. So
yeah,
not great.
No, not great. So to go back and finish, I apologize. Apparently, I tried to do a Google search in a different window, the same window as the stream here. So I apologize. So where I was going with that was the
honestly, it's not okay.
It's not. It's probably suspend me, cut me, mute me, whatever you want to do. So outside of the offensive explosion against St. Louis, where it was 18 runs, they've scored 60 runs in their other 17 games, which is good for just over 3.5 a game, which is very not okay. So obviously we can't do that. I just to show what the offense has been outside of their one anomaly of a game. That the 18-run game is really bringing up the average, which is, if you look at that number compared to 2024 stats. So for you math nerds out there, 78 runs in 18 games is about 4.3 runs a game. Over 162 game season is just shy of 700 runs, which would have been good for 17th in baseball last year. So that's a league average offense, even with that offensive explosion. As a whole, the reason my panic meter is only at a 3.5 is that the American League East as a whole is ass. They are at 8-10. They are 2 games out of first place. The Yankees basically hit all of their home runs and scored all their runs against the Brewers in their opening series. The tough part with this team, and I'm sure you guys touched on it when I ducked out for a few seconds, the pitching staff has been their biggest bugaboo. I was talking to a really good buddy of mine, shout out Justin, earlier today, and we kind of speculated and asked the question and discussed, Crochet aside, did the Red Sox not did they ignore the pitching staff, thinking that it was maybe better than it actually is? And I think there is a little truth to that. There's certainly a ton of question marks. Walker Buehler and Giolito both coming off of arm injuries. Bayo had some issues last year that carried over into this year with his shoulder. Again, Crochet has been nothing short of magnificent outside of his opening day start, but call it I'm a new ace jitters first opening day start situation, but he's been nothing short of the $170 million we're going to be paying him for the next 6 seasons. But Tanner Houck, I don't think he's this bad, but he looks way more like second half Tanner Houck of second half 2024 versus first half 2024. Bueller, I'll give him a little bit of a pass. He is coming into a pitching situation where Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow don't believe in throwing fastball heavy. I don't know if you guys have started watching The Clubhouse yet. Really good, actually. If you haven't started, I recommend it. I'm about almost 4 episodes in, but Breslow he touches on the philosophy of like the fastball is the ball that gets hit the hardest. It has the worst slash line against of any pitch. So if that's the pitch that gets hit the most, hit the hardest, hit the farthest, and you give up the most runs on it, then why is that your dominant pitch? And there's no way to directly connect the dots, but it's a little intriguing that ever since this was the philosophy that began a little over a year ago, you have pitchers with arm injuries galore on the roster, because they're not used to throwing. They're used to throwing 40 to 50% fastball, mixing in breakings and off speed stuff, and now it's like, well, 70% of the time you need to be throwing off-speed pitches, and 40% of the time it needs to be a breaking ball, which is a lot more wear and tear and torque on the elbow. I'm no doctor. I'm not going to dive into that, but it's a little too coincidental that Pivetta had arm issues last year. Houck had arm issues in the second half of the year, although that I think was more usage versus pitch arsenal. But Giolito first spring under the new pitch plan, arm injury. Bayo, shoulder injury. Maybe there's something there I don't know. But the starting pitching staff has not been good enough. I don't know what the bullpen numbers are, Matt. I think good, not great seems to be a fair assessment on them. I know that they were nails in the opening series against Texas. They didn't give up a single run in 12 games, and the Red Sox lost 3 out of 4, which is pretty miraculous that you can pull that off with your bullpen basically shutting everybody down. But they got to turn it around. Maybe luck's on their side. The Tampa Bay Rays have not won a game on April 15th in 15 years. They are 0-10 in those 15 years on this date. So hopefully that and Red Sox jersey brings them some luck tonight. That, and usually when a team goes on an offensive barrage one night, they go kind of the other way the following day. We certainly saw that with the Red Sox. They scored 18 runs on Sunday, and I think they scored like 7 in a week. So panic meter is 3.5. Again, it's still April. We'll see, a month, 6-8 weeks from now, when you start getting into warmer weather and the offense should start to pull around. But, I would say, small red flag, but I'm not ready to blow things up yet. Last, I guess, little piece is I don't necessarily know how much of a hot seat Cora would be on, but I agree. You can't argue with results. They did go out and add legit pieces to this team, but I just wonder if maybe they should have paid a little bit more attention to the pitching rotation than they did.
Yeah, I mean, the one big guy they got, sorry, Matt, was obviously Crochet, as you said, been a great ace, exactly what they went out and got, they paid for, both in assets when they acquired him, and then also with the $170 million. Is he the first ace we've had since like 2017 Chris Sale, where you give him the ball every 5 days? If you're on a skid, if you're on a losing streak, whatever, you feel confident, get the ship righted, right? Because I mean, it happened when he took over against was it the Orioles? They were on a skid, and then he came in and kind of was nails against them. No, it was the White Sox. It was the White Sox because Chase Niederoff had broke up the no, exactly. So he's of course been the one bright spot of the rotation we've been just bagging on for the past 5 minutes. And you would hope that would kind of carry over with the entire team. The momentum would carry over, and Houck would be, a little better than he was, of course, which isn't saying a whole lot. But I agree. I think Houck is more what Houck was last year after the All-Star break and second half of the season is just more so what he is. So him being your number 2 starter is concerning. I don't know how often people kind of switch around the rotation, but if there's a way to like give him a couple extra days off, whatever, especially if Bayo comes back and if Giolito comes back, and if Giolito can be your 4 or 5 starter, I think you're in a good spot. But I agree. I think maybe there was a little bit too much pressure and too much confidence, for lack of a better term, put on Tanner Houck and the pitching staff, considering how good they were and how just how good Andrew Bailey's regiment was last year. It feels like there was a lot of assumptions that would carry over, and so far we're not seeing it.
Yeah, and I think that Houck is, like, at the end of the day, he's probably somewhere in between first half 24 and second half 2024 Houck. Probably, I mean, and again, I think this just had more to do with the fact that he hadn't thrown more than 120 innings in the season, and he passed that mark in like August or late July, early August. Obviously what he did last night, what did we say it was? 2 1/3, 11 hits, 10 earned. Like, that's as bad as it gets. I mean, he's certainly not that bad, but I think he's closer to like second half of last year versus first half of last year, which is still better.
I think he's like a high 3 ERA guy. Like,
yeah, high 3, low 4.
Not great. Yeah.
Yeah. But they need somebody to step up and be a number 2. I think if you can get more from what you got with Walker Buehler last time through the rotation, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. It was far and away his best stat, start of the year. Prior to that, he hadn't gotten out of the 5th inning in either start. It was like 4 innings and then 4 1/3 on opening day against St. Louis. He was looking good early, and then he ran into trouble in the 3rd and 4th innings. But if you can get what you got out of him against Toronto moving forward, like maybe he's the guy that steps up and he can kind of slot into that number 2 role. And then you kind of figure out the rest of it from there, depending on what Bayo and Giolito look like. If they're contending at all come trade deadline, starting pitching help should be the first thing they go look for.
Well, yeah, and then you'll probably have one of these young guys up too, so you'll have a surplus of options. But
yeah,
all right, I do want to transition. We're a little long on what I wanted, but we're good to go. I do want to transition into Patriots world. The draft is, like you said before, 9 days away. So this is the prime time for the Rtb Patriots Mock Draft 1.0. So we're going to start this up. We're going to do 7 rounds. We're going to go nice and slow here. We're going to do some Patriots. I'm going to, depending on how this starts out, we might be restarting it. But let's see. No. No.
Well, yeah, and this is like the tricky part, right? You need to I don't know, Matt, are you gonna restart it? What'd you do over there, buddy?
Hold on. Something happened. Something's up with PFF. Hold on. All right, let's get back into this. All right, let's try this Bad Larry again because Shedeur Sanders and Mason Graham are not.
Well, wait. You can't have it on turbo speed because if you're gonna want to trade, it's gonna need to go slow enough. And you need it. There you go. Well, sorry, because you would have gotten exactly the first 3 picks you wanted, and then it'd be like you blink and you're sitting there at 38. All right. That's not the worst outcome in the world. It's not necessarily. That's not what's going to happen, but that's not.
No.
I think what's going to happen.
Let's play magician and say Carter's not there. Let's just play it out that way. Let's say Carter goes 3, Hunter goes 2. It's kind of what we've been seeing since the start of the last couple weeks of what the census is going to be. Where are you guys standing here on number 4? If you're sticking and picking, and then if you're trading back, where do you see like the most likely move back spots?
So for me, so my stick and pick is Will Campbell. Again, we're playing Magician here, where Carter's actually not sitting there. And I've kind of relegated myself to one of 2 trade back scenarios, assuming the value is there. And I'm kind of looking for a lot in one of these examples. I think the 2 most likely trade back options, you're looking at Vegas and the Bears. And I say that because I think that those 2 teams have Ashton Genty high on their draft board. And that's a guy that they believe is really talented, fills a need, one of the best available players in the draft. And as we know, Ben Johnson loves high-end running back talent. He utilized Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery very, very well in Detroit. So for me, if Vegas calls, I'm looking at 68 and a 3rd-round pick next year. That's about market value for that spot. If Vegas is like, no way, no how are we giving you our 2026 3rd-round pick, and there are no other offers, I would still take 6 and 68 for 4. That's not a deal breaker for me. But if somebody like the Bears calls, I'm looking at obviously 10, one of their 2nd-round picks. And I'd probably take a 2nd-rounder in 2026, but I'm really pushing for a 1st-round pick. If I'm moving 6 spots back, where the likelihood of Campbell being there at 10 is probably 50-50, whereas there's like a 99.9% chance he's still sitting there at 6. So I want the 1st-round pick next year to go along with the 2nd this year to move that far back.
What's the likelihood that they trade back, in your opinion?
Yeah, and so like those are the two options. I would say if I'm gonna put odds on it, I would say there's somewhere between a 60 and a 65% chance that they just stay there and take Campbell. Because I don't think they're gonna get competitive offers. I don't think Vegas would call you and say 668 and a 26 3rd. I think you'd have to counter with that with the hopes that they agree. And I don't think you're going to get the offer from the Bears that's like 10, either 39 or 41, and a premium pick in 26. So if they're not getting those offers, then they stay and pick. But I think there's a legitimate chance they trade back, which is why I say like 60 to 65% chance they stay. I just don't know as if they're going to get those competitive offers that I think they're going to want.
Yeah. Zach, where are you on this?
Using this draft board that we have here, and obviously if Carter's not there, that would mean the Shedeur Sanders is on the board. And with the amount of teams that need a quarterback, I know everyone's been saying that he's not a 1st-round talent. The reports about that flip-flop every day, it feels like. I'm kind of with Ben. I think the 2 teams that make the most sense are certainly the Raiders and the Saints, especially if Derek Carr is out for the year. But the Genty thing is a good point as well. I actually give it a 60-40 chance that they do trade out if both Carter and Hunter are gone. For the simple fact that I think if they do covet Will Campbell the most, either one of those picks, either 6 if it's the Raiders or 9 if it's the Saints, I think Will Campbell will still be there. So we talked about last podcast getting 41, 40, whatever that 2nd-round pick is from either one of those teams, moving back a couple spots and then picking your guy anyways, as well as some capital to move back up into the 20s if needed. I put it at 60-40 that they do trade out and still pick Will Campbell. Now, but if they need to stick at 4, I think their heart is pretty much set on Will Campbell. But I would rather see them trade out, given all that information.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to Vrabel came out and talked today, and it's tough to take too much what he says too seriously because they're not trying to like display their plan. But they asked him straight up, is there a tackle worth taking at 4? And his answer, at least in my opinion, I think it was kind of the majority opinion of how it was interpreted, was that he does not believe that there's a tackle worthy of taking at 4. So I think he, at least personally himself, and again, this is obviously just, gauging everything all together and giving it a thought, is that I don't think that he thinks Campbell is worth the 4th pick. That being said, he also knows it's the big need. And I think he probably really likes Campbell, the person, but I just don't think on field wise he loves him enough to take him at 4. That being said, we'll see how much power, I guess, that he really has. Granted, we won't know what his real thoughts are. But I think that he wants to move back more than anything else by a lot. And like I've said numerous times over the last couple of weeks, I would move back even if the value's pretty shit pretty ass. So like you said, like Raiders, if they only offered 68, that's a below market value trade back in the top 6 of the NFL draft. I would still take it. Like you said, Ben, there's a very high chance that Campbell is still there at 6 if they do trade back, because the thought would be that the Raiders are moving up for Genty, and the Jags take Mason Graham.
Yeah, the Jags have been honing in on Mason Graham since basically free agency,
So I'm not fully convinced that either of those teams are dead set on either of those players, but that's where the betting odds are. That's where the rumors are. So we'll go with that. But I look back at Chicago and I say, they're sitting there at 10, and they got 2 second-round picks, and not only 2 second-round picks, but 2 top 41 picks. If they love a guy, whether it's a Genty and they want to beat the Raiders to him, or they could go D-line in theory and go get Mason Graham ahead of the Jags. If they want to move up, they could probably move up for a very reasonable price, at least based off the value. And I know Ben went and said, he would want to feature first and in the second. I mean, honestly, for me, if you offered 10 and 39, I would probably take that.
No.
And the value, the value is not great, but
the value is ass.
But I think you can move back to 10 and still get a really good player, a very similar player that you would have taken at 4, and you get another top 40 pick that you can use. Either you could just sit there and take 2 guys in the top 40, or you can have all the ammo necessary to go back into the first round and take whoever the hell you're targeting. Is it likely? No. I mean, predicting any single trade back right now is pretty unlikely. Right now, like you guys suggested, I would probably say there's probably 60-ish% chance that they just stick and pick. And at the moment, that would tell me that it's going to be Will Campbell. As much as Ben knows, as I very much want to move back. But I think we're all in consensus here, right? That the most likely scenario is they're going to stick and pick, and it's going to be Will Campbell, right?
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, and I would say, just to throw it out there, I would say that it's more likely if they trade back. And I realize that there's a whole slew of unknowns with who's going to call and make an offer, because that was something that Vrabel said today. I was trying to find some quotes from the Mike Reeses of the world to see to get more information, because Matt, I know I texted you with some of the clips that I heard of his presser on the radio. My guess is if they're going to trade back, which he indicated that they would obviously evaluate any offers and basically decide are we better? Are we getting Are we getting more value in a trade back where we know we can still get a guy at a premium position, versus staying here and taking the guy we know we can get now? I mean, obviously, that any GM / coach / football ops guy is going to say that. I would say if there's the most realistic trade back, in my opinion, based on how I think Vrabel wants to address the needs on this team, would be trading back to like 6, because Vegas doesn't want to lose out on Genty and they're concerned that the Bears would jump them. So, like, if you wanted to mock a slight trade back here, like, I think it's way more likely they trade back to 6 and take a 3rd rounder this year than they are to go back to 10. Because I don't think they want to miss out on Campbell, but yeah.
We could play around maybe next time around. Maybe we'll get a little bit more insight. At the moment, I don't think the Raiders will jump at moving up for Genty enough.
No,
I think that they kind of call the bluff of, like, I think the Pats will try to drum up interest in the pick, but
sure,
I just don't see it. So
something would have to happen in the next week to make the Raiders legitimately shaking in their boots that Genty is not going to be there at 6.
Yeah. So let's start off here with Will Campbell. And we'll see this kind of shit down, and boy, this is going to be pretty slow. But I look at the Jags personally.
Just pause it and review.
I look at the Jags personally, right? And is running back a need? No, because they do have ETN and Bigsby, but like, it's not like either of those guys are anything special. I don't expect them to go in, but like, I think this scenario has been a little. I just think he could be dominant there.
I'd be genuinely surprised if they took Genty. Now, I think if there's I don't want to say under the radar, but because the Jags have been linked to Mason Graham for so long, I think if you're going to talk about like an under the radar direction that they go in if they don't take Mason Graham, like, would it utterly shock me if they went, we really need somebody opposite Brian Thomas Jr. in either like a Tet McMillan, like a big bodied guy, because Brian Thomas Jr. already fits that like elite separator, speed, good route tree guy? That wouldn't shock me. It also wouldn't shock me if they went Tyler Warren because they're looking for weapons for Trevor Lawrence. Like, those are two guys that I look at 5 if it's not Mason Graham. Genty would be a legitimate surprise just based on the fact that, well, now you have a very crowded running back room and you're not really helping Lawrence out a lot. Like, you're creating enough of a logjam that you have to make a decision. Like, could they? Sure. But I look at, like, if it's not Graham, I look at either a wide receiver or Ty Warren at 5.
Yeah. All right. Let's have this go a little bit more. All right. So you look at they don't.
No. And don't click on that because you'll reset it. That's the one thing I will say. As much as I love,
it's a PFF. It doesn't give who's available.
As much as I love their interface and how it works, I wish you could see the available players.
Yeah.
Because that makes it a lot easier.
So Simmons and Banks are both sitting there, but the Pats obviously just took Campbell, so they don't really need that.
What wide receivers are gone?
All 3 running receivers are gone.
So Burden's the next best available wide receiver if they want to trade up for a wide receiver.
So it's just kind of not playing out that way. So in my opinion, like, really, I don't see them moving up until maybe the late round 1. Right? Like, I would be shocked if they move up into this range for like a Burden or an edge rusher.
Now theoretically, now out of curiosity, in theory, like, let's say you're sitting there at 21 and the only wide receiver off the board is Tet McMillan. And so you have Golden, Egbuka, and Burden all sitting there. Does that increase the odds of trading up? I know you're high on Golden, but so, like, would you be more apt to move up to 21 for one of those guys? Or are you just saying in general you don't think that they would move that far up because of the capital it would take to
No,
move 17 picks.
they'd move up that far. I'm saying based off how this plays, I don't know if I don't see Tech going to Indy, but like we could see Tech going to Dallas. And then Golden could absolutely end up in Atlanta. Agbuka could absolutely end up in Seattle. So it's certainly, feasible for how this plays out. And so they're sitting here, like if Agbuka or Golden are available, I'm moving up into this range, and I would certainly consider it.
Yeah, especially because you expect LA and Green Bay to possibly more more so. You expect LA
but
to
how
go
this
wide
plays
receiver.
out, if those three are gone and you took Campbell, like I'm not moving up for any of these guys. Like there's a James Pierce who I think is uber talented, but a lot of seems to be character worries. So let's play this out. Yes, he's Simmons, Starks, Booker. That's early for Booker. Walker goes 24. That was going to go much earlier. So Loveland to Detroit would be funny. But all right, so we're sitting here at Washington. Like we look at, it's tough to remember who's available, but a Nick Scorton guy that I mocked it recently in the late first. He just screams New England Patriot. I don't know why, but he's a variable type of guy, in my opinion. He fits a need. So, where are you guys? Would you think that they trade up for an edge guy? Do you think trading up for Burden is in play? Where are you guys right now?
Yeah. So like you talked about late first round, like this is kind of a hot spot. I think, and we don't have to we don't have to go down the rabbit hole. I think that Minnesota absolutely trades out of 24. They only have 4 draft picks, so I don't suspect that they're going to stay there. So that obviously might change how the back end of the first round looks. But if you're sitting there and Washington's on the clock, you could make the argument that Washington's probably looking at guys like Amari and Hampton. I know that he's not available in this mock, but like Gray Zabel is a pretty versatile interior offensive lineman that probably could be there in the early part of the second round. It's like this is a hot spot for a trade up for sure, especially because the Bills could use some help on the D line, and damn well the Eagles have guys along that D line that are high on their draft board. Their entire D line minus 2 defensive tackles is gone from 2024. So I expect them to be targeting, especially an edge rusher. They lost Josh Sweat. They lost Milton Williams to us, but they still have Carter and Davis. But like I look at them as a team that doesn't need a ton of help offensively. So I don't know why PFF has wide receiver as their top need. I know there's not a ton of depth there, but when you've got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, like I don't know why, but anyway. So like I look at them as an edge team. I look at the Bills. Like this would be a spot if the Patriots are like we got to go edge. Like 29 is a spot to do it because you've got to beat the Bills and the Eagles, who in all likelihood, Philly's definitely going edge, and Buffalo very well could do that.
So they could theoretically at this point.
You'd probably have to give up. Like, I don't know if I'd want to give up a current pick this year. I'd be more apt to throw them like a 2026 third round pick. I don't know if that gets it done. Washington might want the same year assets. But you can get 29 for a 2026 third.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it.
And then you're sitting there. Now, of course, like, if you want to go based off of
you
this.
You could go James Pierce.
Right, like you could go Pierce. Have they brought Pearson on a visit? Do either one of you know?
I know of. And so Pierce is fascinating because he's very good, but he has character issues that tell me like I don't know if Vrabel's going to want to touch him type of player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's it say? Let's see. Let's see. The bottom of the page says he could also be more consistent launch off his front foot. Snap count lower than most of his peers due to Tennessee's hockey-like defensive lines. Not necessarily a knock on Pierce, something that factors into his projection. I don't see anything in here about character issues. Not to say they don't exist, but it's not in his scouting report. The other thing that's a little concerning is he is not big for an edge rusher. Like, yeah, he's tall, but 243 is not big for an edge rusher.
Yeah, he's skinny. He's a more of a lengthy guy.
But like, scroll down and
rather than,
compare him to Nick Scorton.
Oh yeah, Nick Scorton is
literally like he's
40 pounds
shorter.
bigger.
With 40 pounds more of a frame on him. The nice thing that I like about Scorton, and it's touched on there in that first line, is that he has the versatility to be like in a 3-point stance or line up in a stand-up position. Like that versatility, I really, really like. Vrabel's gonna like it. They certainly could use an outside edge presence opposite. Oh God, Matt, who am I blanking on? Who would be on the opposites? Who did they just sign?
Jarvis Landry and Chason.
That's right.
Harold Landry.
Landry is the
Jarvis. Did I say Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, you did. I don't even know what his first name is, but Landry's an edge guy, right? Yeah, Gibbons and Spillane are more up the middle run guys. So they definitely could use the presence. I like that versatility, but like that's why, like if they're gonna move up for an edge guy, it like 29 is the spot to do it, and like Nick Scorton's kind of the guy.
All right, Zach, you in kind of favor for that?
Yeah, I think if you're going to move up, it's going to be for a guy that you believe in, and I think I agree. If it's James Pierce, I'd be shocked because Vrabel doesn't seem to want anything to do with this guy. So it's either going to be Burden for me or this Nick Scorton.
Part of this problem for me is like I think like Pierce goes here, Pierce could easily go there.
Yeah, like Jalen Walker is definitely not like I am. It's funny. I might of guys that I routinely talk about draft prospects, I might be the lowest of anybody I talk to on Jalen Walker. Not just like he's not going to fall to 24, but like I know Matt has kind of cooled off on taking him at 4, but like I talk to friends who follow the draft that are like, I would consider either Jalen Walker or Will Campbell at 4, and I'm like, I don't.
Todd McShay would too. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I don't know. Call me crazy, but
like Pierce could go anywhere in this range, and I think he will. Like
he's probably a late first-round pick.
Yeah, like the Chargers lost Bosa. They could use an edge. 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 Like I don't know if Pierce is going to be available in this spot, anyways. So I think it's a good idea, and I think Scorton really fits. What Vrabel's looking for in a guy. So. Yeah. All right, let's go him. As this plays out, Pierce goes right next. Amari Hampton goes to Philly, which is interesting. So we're looking at here, you filled 2 of your biggest needs. You got tackle, you got edge. You still could use a wide receiver. They got 69 still and 77.
So pause real quick.
Their full set of picks. What are you thinking?
So just how it plays out, and I know I showed you in my mock earlier. I moved up to 50, I think it was, for Jaden Higgins, or it was in this range anyway. In real life, I don't think he's going to fall to you. Like in this mock, you could realistically get a guy like Trey Harris, who I really, really love. You could probably get him at 69 in this format.
Don't get me wound up.
Because Matt's going to be pitching a 10 over there in a minute. So you could get Harris at 69. In real life, he to me is anywhere from He is anywhere from like mid 40s. Like he could go as early as mid 40s. But I don't he's not falling to you in the back half of that second round. Or
who, Trey Harris or Higgins?
Either guy. Like if you're gonna move up, like realistically, if you want a wide receiver like a Jaden Higgins or a Trey Harris, to me it's flip a coin. I'd love either one of those guys on the Patriots. I give a little bit of an edge to Trey Harris. But if you're gonna trade up for a wide receiver, Matt, I don't know if you can scroll up. I don't know if the Packers or Chargers took a wide receiver in the first round.
No, Packers took Booker.
Okay, so which is crazy to me. He's not a first-round guard.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna make a move on a wide receiver, like this is a spot you'd have to do it, because I would suspect that both the Packers and Chargers would take somebody like a Trey Harris if he's still on the board in the mid-50s, or a Jaden Higgins. Like if one of those guys is gone, whoever's left over, this is kind of a spot where, and I know I'm a little bit more trade happy than you, but like if you're going to go wide receiver, this might be a spot you have to move up from 69 in order to get the wide receiver that you want.
Yeah. So the one thing I've noticed, in previous drafts too, and stuff like, is the second round and third round. It's a hot spot for wide receivers, but it's very unpredictable.
Yeah. Quick update. Alex Bregman, RBI single to left, scoring Rafael Devers. The Red Sox are winning 1-0 in the first inning.
Woo. All right.
Off to a hot start.
Yeah. Trevor Story just singled as well, so it's first and third, 2 outs.
Let's go. Fantasy.
So, it's very hit or miss in the second and third round that I've noticed in recent years, and it's really tough to gauge how each of these teams view the wide receivers. Like we talked about, by the time last year, Javon Baker, we were like, all right, he's going in the third round, and then he fell to the fourth. Jalen Polk, he was seen as a late round 2, early round 3 guy. He goes early round 2 to the Patriots. So I think that Higgins is kind of walked in the top 50. I do think there's an outside chance that Trey Harris falls into the later half of the second round. But I mean, just my opinion, I view him as like a high second, low round first talent.
Trey Harris, you're talking about?
I really like him, but I'm higher on him than most, which is fine. But
something you and I agree on. I know that's rare.
Yeah. And so, I look at how this plays out, and we could kind of scroll a little bit more. But so if we're sitting here, at 58 and stuff like that, and we got, there's a Noel that's still on the board. There's probably, I hate that they don't show us who went. There's Scatterbo, Judkins.
Restrepo's gone. I'm like, if I had to guess, Trey Harris is probably the best available wide receiver on the big board. Hold on one second. I'm gonna
Is Illuminor gone?
He should be. Hold on. I'm gonna bring up
the Bears at 41.
I'm gonna bring up the big board on my side, Matt, and tell you what wide receiver. Can you just real quick read off the wide receivers that have been drafted? Hold on.
Restrepo.
All right. So
Higgins.
So based on player rank, your next best available wide receivers in order: Jalen Royals out of Utah State, 61 overall; Kyle Williams out of Washington State, 65 overall; and then you've got Trey Harris at 71. Both Kyle Williams and Jalen Royals were kind of bumped ahead of Trey Harris, which is why for those who do the Pro Football Mock, you can get him at 69, but I just don't think that actually plays out in real life.
I think Royals is behind him. I think Kyle Williams is going to go higher than what he's been generally mocked at, which was like a 4 or 5 guy. I think he's going to go round 3. Do I think he goes round 2? I would be pretty surprised. So I think that this is like the latest range that you could probably get a guy like Trey Harris or Jalen Noel. We didn't trade back and forth. We traded up from 38. Where are you guys here in terms of just like you think they're sitting? Obviously, we're kind of playing like what would we do, but at the same time, we got to be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, is it realistic that they trade? I mean, we've already done one trade up. Like, is it realistic they do it again? I mean, my gut says no, but at the same time, there's an unknown because Vrabel, at least in my opinion, I think Vrabel's the top of the food chain. So if Vrabel's like, this is a guy I want, and you can move up like to this spot, and get a guy like a Trey Harris, I think they theoretically could do it because I think, if you're going to go from 69 to 58, you could probably get away with 144. Like, out of curiosity, does 69 and 144 get you to 58? It'll be close. So it's 50-50. So you could throw in like a future 7th round pick to basically.
It would be.
More or less
they basically view it as a fair.
Yeah, so that's a fair trade. I mean, Matt, what do you think? Do you think that, given how we played this out, where we had them trade up for Scorton, like, do you see them doing like trading? I can see them trading back again at some point to add assets, but I feel like multiple trade ups in the draft is just not really a common thing that teams do.
Yeah. Zach, where are you?
Yeah, I'd agree. No, I think I agree. If you're going to trade up in the first round or get back into the first round, I'd have a hard time seeing the Patriots do it, especially when they have like so many needs. And I know that sounds weird, but you're giving
Let's
up a lot
play
of
this.
assets to move up. So,
Yeah,
but there needs to be a move up at some point in this draft for sure.
Yeah. So there's yeah, so like here you are. So like now here's the interesting part. Knowing full well that you can get that you could get like Trey Harris's rank, like he probably falls in there. But again, like what's interesting is Pro Football Focus is probably going to have Royals and Kyle Williams. Is it Kyle Williams, right? Would probably go ahead of him because of the rank. Although Kyle Williams has a much they both have lower ADPs.
They go by ADPs generally.
Yeah, so like if you look at it right now in this scenario,
so Harris will probably go first between those three in terms of the mocks.
Yeah,
so like, when we talk about getting him at 77, I mean, let's put Trey Harris out of this because we kind of feel like that he's going to be going earlier.
Yeah, I feel like
here, so we I know Oladio right here he visited the Patriots. I know there's some interest there. Dylan Sampson visited him. Andrew Mukaba, which is a guy that Ben, you and I like. He's a true free safety, which is a guy that they have not had since Devin McCourty left.
Yeah.
So you look at his numbers right here. 508 of his snaps last year were as a true free safety. Deep in the thing. Do you look at I'm a huge Benjamin Morris fan. He has some injury worries. But if he is available, I personally think that he is one of the best corners in the game. That is only sliding, in the draft. That's only sliding back because of his injury worries. Where are you guys here at 69? How are you feeling?
So based on the board, again, if you're going to take Trey Harris out of the equation, assuming he goes first, I am jumping on Kevin Winston Jr. He, to me, is the best safety prospect in this draft. He was injured in 2024, but if you look at just overall, granted, this is all based on medicals. If his medicals check out, he, again, is a true deep safety. He's pseudo hybrid. He played a little bit of box safety last year. But in terms of talent level, let me put it to you this way. If he didn't partially tear his ACL early on in 2024,
he'd probably be a first round pick.
He is a mid to late first round talent in this draft. And that, to me, sitting here in the early part of the third round, when they need a free safety and you're talking about somebody with that amount of talent, not taking, again, depending on how the board actually plays out in real life, like getting Winston here to me is an absolute steal.
All right, Zach, where are you?
So I definitely get the need for Kevin Winston and McBuka, but at some point, I'd be very surprised if they ignored the wide receiver position for the first 3 rounds of the draft. I know we took Trey Harris out. Based on that, I would say Jalen Royals, but there's just so many different needs at the top of that, for pure talent. But I would have a very hard time believing that they would ignore the wide receiver position if for the first 3 rounds of the draft, especially if
note that they obviously have 77 here too.
They do, yeah. I'm looking at the draft position though too, especially after you said that.
Yeah, so if you look at this, and it's tough to really gauge where anybody goes at this point once you get past the first round. But I think that I know he'll be available in this mock just based off PFF. But Kyle Williams will be there probably at 77. And so he's the guy that had visited New England. I haven't heard a damn thing about Jalen Royals in this entire draft process. Not even just the Patriots. Which is a little abnormal. Hair-wise, I think Kevin Winston would be high on the board. I don't know if he's available. But I mentioned to Ben yesterday or this morning, Oladipo is a guy that seems to be rising on boards, hence why his rank is so much higher than his ADP.
Yeah. The
I
one
think
thing
he
I'll
fits
say
that
about
board.
the one thing I'll say about him is when we traded up for a first round edge guy, taking a high third round edge guy seems like the Patriots
Correct.
would not do that.
Correct.
However,
that's where I'm like,
yeah, but however, if you look at it, right, like say we had mocked because Luther Burden was still sitting on the draft board, like if we had traded up for Luther Burden, because in real life you could probably get Luther Burden or like probably the late first, and then Oladipo is probably still sitting there at 69. Like that's not a terrible alternative to, Nick Scorton at 29 and then figuring out what you're going to do in the third.
yeah. So I mean, where are you guys leaning here? So I would say here the most likely situations is they could love Morrison, they could go running back, but I don't find it likely. I think Mukaba fits perfectly with what they need. It kind of seems like we're a little bit split here. They could go with Jalen Noel, who we know has visited there.
Yeah, the reason that I
didn't see he was available too.
Yeah, and so I look at also the dynamic of the Patriots wide receiver room. So if they're going to go wide receiver between 69 and 77, and again, I know he's available in the mock, but if somebody like a Trey Harris or a Jaden Higgins is still sitting there, like that's a hot spot for me because both of those guys are bigger bodied. Like they have speed, but they're not burners. They're good possession. Like I think one of the write-ups on Jaden Higgins is that like he's not super fast, but he ran a very diverse route tree at Iowa State, and I think the actual write-up on him is that he's always in the right place at the right time. So that certainly makes up for the fact that he's not just going to run by guys. I'm kind of with Zach. Like I don't think whether we mock a guy at 69 or 77, I don't like the Patriots are not going to go into the fourth round of this draft without it taking a wide receiver.
All right, fuck it. Let's go.
But I don't. So you pass on Trey Harris? That was an odd.
Again, we're kind of just like playing off whether he's going to be available or not. So now we're sitting here, and they filled their three biggest needs, right? So they went tackle, they went wide receiver, they went edge. And this is where the whole value of best available versus needs and stuff like it's a balance, obviously.
Like in this spot, if he's in this, sorry, go ahead.
I personally love Jalen Noel. I think he's a very good player. So if he's there, like I have no problem saying wide receiver is a big need, and I love this guy. So let's combine it and go get him.
Yeah, and I know that I believe it was Andrew Callahan had a write-up on him before he came on the pod not too long ago. And I think and if I'm misquoting, if it's not Andrew Callahan, I apologize. But somebody had said that like Jalen Noel was going to be quote unquote one of their guys when it came, like when they were scouting wide receiver prospects. His skill set is there. He's not a bigger bodied guy. He's basically he's built like Julian Edelman. He's 5'11", 200. I think Edelman was more like on the 5'9", 5'10" side. But being that he's bigger, he's also a multi-sport athlete, which I know take that with a grain of salt, but I think that matters. I think that he certainly fills that need. But like sitting there at 77, I think given who's available, I look at one of two things here. Out of curiosity, what are our trade offers? Like, okay, I'm not moving back to 9. I'm not moving back 20 spots. I know we could force a trade here. But like to me, given what they're looking at, I would look at either like Kevin Winston or Andrew Makuba, who are.
I'm gonna just let's just say that he's not available because I agree. Like he's gonna fall because of his injury, but I have a hard time seeing him falling this deep. I think that like
he could be. He's probably
back into the second round.
Yeah. Especially if his medicals check out. But like Andrew Makuba definitely fits that. He is a true free safety. He's very, very good.
The only other option for me that I like a lot is, well, I mean, you could go Tate Radledge. He would be fine, but is right here is Wyatt Millam. I've always been a big Wyatt Millam fan. He was a very good left tackle at West Virginia. His measurables do not tell you he's going to be a left tackle in the NFL. His arms were like 32.5, which is low. So he's most likely going to be a guard, but he's a mauler. If you put him and Campbell together on the left side, like that could be set for the next 10 years in New England.
Yeah. So we
Zach, where are you on this, Zach?
Yeah, I'm gonna go best available here, and of course, if Winston, if we're saying he's off the board, Makuba I also like a lot. I think I've only really seen him or it came about him because every mock draft you had was always had him in like this position. So I just kept looking up his highlights and looking up his info and stuff. And big fan, as you guys have said, definitely that free safety we've been missing. They've kind of been trying to put someone in that spot. So I'd be high on him if they got him at this point.
Yeah, the one knock on him is his tackling leaves a lot to be desired. That's his biggest weakness. But the thing about but I look at that and go, okay, like in a vacuum, like that's not really what you want. But he's not a strong safety. He's not an Ed Reed. He's not a Rodney Harrison. He's not a bruiser, right? He's your Devin McCourty. He's your free safety.
Hey. Can you see this? Can you see this highlight?
I didn't even, to be honest, I didn't even see that in the write-up. But like, you look at a guy like Devin McCourty, who was a corner coming out of Rutgers, couldn't tackle to save his life, and was getting beat, and he was getting beat pretty bad. And then they transitioned him to free safety, where he can basically just be center fielder. And he was regarded as one of the top free safeties in the league for a number of years. Maybe not his entire career, but a number of years he was regarded as. So that's the guy. But the other thing is, and where I was going to go with that is based on the breakdown of the secondary the Patriots have, is you have enough guys between Kyle Duggar, between oh my God, I'm going to blank on his name, Jabril Peppers. I almost said Adrian Phillips, but he hasn't been on this team in like 50 years. Matt probably is too young to know who Adrian Phillips was.
What?
What? But between Peppers and Duggar, the Pats have enough guys who are going to handle the tackling component that Makuba, I think, can just feel free to just roam around and just be a legit like elite center field type prospect.
Yeah, they have strong safeties. They've been force feeding into a free safety role, but if you can get a pure free safety, then you're
this Makuba pick is where I get we gotta go need, and it just very much displays the people that are surface Patriots fans and really aren't like that knowledgeable. They just see the word safety and they're like, oh, we got a bunch of safeties, we don't need that. Like, we don't have a true free safety. We've been throwing Peppers and Mapu like out there like, hey, we know this is not your specialty, but go do it. Like Makuba will give that opportunity, if he could develop and be that really a good player, to be that, next Devin McCourty. Sitting here at 106.
Quick update. Jaron Duran, Yabo, 3-0 Red Sox. 2-run shot, 3-0 second inning.
I just got notification Jonathan Aranda homers to center, but it doesn't update the score, so I don't know if they scored. But
I just got the same thing. Homer in the second.
Yeah, there you go. 106 here, so they've filled their biggest needs. Like this is arguably their 4 biggest needs. So you're really looking the best player available kind of world, while also trying to fill needs. In my opinion, here you look at. I'm a big Ashton Gillette fan, but obviously they already took an edge guy. He's going to be that guy. He's going to last around the league. Like he's going to be a special teams guy. He's going to be just an all around solid edge player. But I also look at Jacob Parrish, inside guy. He could ideally
love Jacob Parrish.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, he's not overly big, but he's lengthy for an inside guy. He fits that need of Marcus Jones is great and all, but like they could upgrade there. Jaden
Yeah.
Blue visited the Patriots. He is a really kind of pretty dynamic running back. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run in between the tackles. He doesn't have like that mustard and size and overall like true quickness to be, I think, elite, but he has that long speed pass catching ability. Jeffrey Bassa, big guy. I'm a big fan of his in the middle rounds, linebacker. We know that the Patriots obviously have signed a bunch of linebackers, so we don't know where they feel on that. I mean, you could continue to roll down this list a little bit, but where are you guys feeling here? And is there any guy that jumps out to you?
I'm a little non-conventional with this pick just because I'm really, really high on him and there's no future plan right now. I'm a big Harold Fannin fan. He's a guy that, while he certainly isn't the best tight end in the draft, I like what he brings to the table. He's an elite pass catcher. He's on the bigger side. I don't think he's certainly not a top end blocking tight end, but it's not a liability either. Like you would get with somebody like a Mason Taylor or a Gunnar Helm. Like neither one of those guys is setting the edge in run situations. I look at a guy like Fannin who he basically takes over when Hunter Henry plays out the duration of his contract, which I believe he has 1 year left on that, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he just signed an extension.
Oh, he did? Okay. So, but I look at that and go, Hunter Henry's what, 31, 32? He's in that range. I like the upside with Fannin. I wouldn't necessarily hate the idea of, at this point, figuring out a way to further solidify the offensive line. I don't know what guard or, tweener tackle, as they call them, is available in this particular spot. I lean Fannin just because I like the upside, and he's a younger tight end that can grow with Drake May in the offense. But I mean, again, best available at this point. And I think realistically at this spot, you're probably looking at somebody that Mike Vrabel likes as an interior offensive lineman is probably the option, but I don't know if there's anybody in this spot who kind of fits that. Like, I don't know how far they have to reach to get, an interior offensive lineman.
I don't really love for interior offensive line. Like, there's not a lot of options that generally jump out at me in this rare. Zach, where are you feeling?
Oddly enough, I was also a Harold Fannin guy. Just for kind of the same reasons that Ben mentioned. Forgot that Austin Hooper had signed an extension. I was going to say he could kind of slot in as,
that being said, Henry has 2 years left, and Hooper signed a 1 year deal. So, I don't look at Fannin saying there's no sense tight ends filled. And I had this conversation with a guy on X earlier. He was like, "Oh, these positions are filled." I was like, "Can you really tell me look at the Patriots roster and tell me what positions are truly filled?" And when you look at that, it's what QB and I don't know, Milton Williams' position. After that, is maybe corner, maybe the two wide corners are filled for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of positions that are rock solid filled. And in my mind, if you can draft a player that's an upgrade, the position's not filled, right?
Yeah.
Filled. So Harold Fannin, not that he'd come in and be better than Henry, but I don't think that Henry and Hooper should shy you away from taking a tight end.
Yeah, I think if there's another guy who is. And there's a little bit of recency bias here because I don't know if you guys caught any of the Felger and Maz big board from today. JJ Pegas, he's the interior defensive lineman from Ole Miss. the tough part with him, like he's a guy I feel like might be an under the radar pick at this spot or somewhere in this range. He is an interior pass rush specialist. You know, 125 is kind of a, or 106 is kind of a reach. So he's a big boy, as you can see. But oddly enough, he's not like he's not a great run stopping defensive lineman. His strength is interior pass rush. As evidenced by you can see that although I don't the grades there, like if you read scouting reports, and again this came out of the sports book that Felger and Maz say, their write up on him was that he was a better interior. I don't know what PFF has, but that he was a better interior pass rusher versus, you know, being an elite run stopper. But I think that, you know, there's enough versatility there. He's not like an every down kind of guy. But I mean, given his size, he's kind of an underrated guy. I don't love him at this spot, but he's kind of an underrated guy at that spot.
All right. So let's, do we want to go Fannin? I think Fannin, Parrish, and Jaden Blue are probably the most likely. Jaden Blue, with basically, so Trevor Etienne, who's a little bit down right here, was on a visit today. So that means that Etienne, Jaden Blue, and at least I forget who, one other running back in this range, Jacquez Hunter, also came on a visit. So they're clearly looking at this area to go running back. Let's kind of narrow down on a decision. Do you think of Fannin? Do you like Parrish, or do you want to go Jaden Blue?
It's probably running back, just because of how much Vrabel's talked about it. The way that I play it out is I like a guy like either like a Brashard Smith at 144 or a LaQuint Allen later, just because they're versatile, where you can get like a little bit of a bigger body back that's also a pass catcher. Because Jaden Blue he's not a 3-down guy.
Well, the problem is, so 144 here, it's hit or miss if Brashard Smith's going to be available.
Correct. I mean, I would say the most likely pick is probably whatever running back they have highest on their draft board. So whether it's Jaden Blue or Trevor Etienne, or who was the other guy you said was on a visit?
Jacquez Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter.
I mean, Hunter's a little undersized, so I mean, not that
Blue I think I do like Jaden Blue. So I think let's go Jaden Blue here. He's, like I said, he's 200 pounds, so he's not like terribly small. But he's a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and
this is probably the best. This is probably the best explanation right here. He's had a little bit of ball security issues, but if he can add and become, a little bit more consistent of a player, he's the perfect complementary guy. Number 2 to a lead back type of player. So let's go Jaden Blue.
Bregman goes yard 4-1.
All right, so the Sox are actually playing decent.
Yeah,
we can speed this bad Larry up a little bit.
Yeah, sucks for my fantasy team because I started Ryan Pepio against the Red Sox, but I also have Walker Buehler in the same game, so it kind of nullifies it out.
There you go.
Wow.
So we're sitting here at 104. We can kind of speed this bad Larry up. So we're sitting here at 104. Obviously, we have a double dip at Texas. They have filled basically every major notable need here, right? So you look at this, and it's really just like, take your favorite player, right? And I think that's what they'll do. I like Ty Robinson. I think he's a pretty versatile guy. The write-up here is limited, but the research I've done, he's pretty versatile. Jacquez Hunter is still available, but they're not going to double dip at running back.
No.
I would say, the most likely scenario here, I'm not going to consider Kyle Williams because there's no chance that he's available here.
No, he's like, if you wanted Kyle Williams, you probably needed to get him at 106. That's probably his floor.
Yeah. So we don't have to spend too much time here, but is there any guy that jumps out the board for you guys here?
Yeah, if you go back up, Logan, I think it's Logan Paul or Paul Logan, Logan Brown, tackle out of Kansas. Played right side because I think we're definitely going to need somebody because right now we don't have a future right tackle outside. Obviously, Morgan Moses is only here for a couple years, so he to me he can be the guy that you develop into being the right tackle of the future. They still need to figure out some things along the offensive line. So I kind of look at that, seeing how we've only mocked them taking a left tackle. So I guess I don't have to keep talking.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's just play it. Let's just play it out. Zach, you can pick the next pick. let's just play it out that way. So now, all right. So they got both tackle jobs, right? So now we look at this and what's say the biggest need. I would probably say it's most likely either in defensive line anywhere along the defensive line. They could go corner.
They really need a nickel corner.
Yeah, I mean they got Marcus Jones, but they could use another nickel corner. Like I said, I do like Ty Robinson. Is there anyone here, Zach, that has stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the guy before, Ty Robinson. There was a guy, Tyler Body, that I had my eye on before, but he's already off the board. Trying to see if there's any corners or nickels besides Robert Longerbeam that I just don't know.
Odell Fortune, he's not.
Okay.
He's not a nickel. He's not like really a nickel guy, but I kind of like him. He's a little bit more of a zone corner, which I don't really love too much, but could fit. I suppose Zach Frazier, Ben, we talked about him because someone mocked him to the Pats in like round 3.
Yeah, no, they mocked him to the Pats at because they traded back from 38 and they mocked them taking him at 41.
Yeah, he wasn't even like in PFF, but now he is. So like he seems to be. I don't know too much about him. I'm not gonna like dick around with him, I guess.
No.
They could go absolutely anywhere here. Like absolutely. And Trevor Tyler Show, the dude's gonna go in the top 40 picks probably. We already took
tackle. The dude who had that rep today at the combine? Was that him?
Yeah, that's the video of him. I don't know what the hell he was doing with that, but Emory Jones is a guy I really like in the later rounds. He played right tackle for LSU. He's going to develop. He's probably more of a guard though, but I think he's got the raw talent. I think to play inside more and be a pretty good player. Beyond that, I mean, they could go QB. I like a Max Brosman. They could go kicker here. I've been a decent Jack Nelson fan. They could go Jack Majors. I know he came in and visit. He's a well experienced, as you can see, 3,700 snaps. Center for Texas.
I don't look. I mean, I'll defer to Zach. I feel like I've been bogarting a lot. I don't look at center as a thing that they would target just because of like they signed Bradbury, so I wonder if they're punting a little bit on the center position. If they didn't sign one, I would say maybe, but
you still left under a bit. I'd be lying if I
knew anything
Zach, about these guys.
Zach, we'll give you this pick.
Give me the Ty Robinson pick at the beginning. He's on
Ty
first page.
I like that. I like I said, they don't give a big mock up here, but he's like a pretty versatile guy. This is probably like this. The traits and motor, like he's a tough dude. Like that type of person. I don't know if he's got necessarily the talent to ever be like a legitimate starting interior defensive lineman, but I think he has all the makings to be a good depth lineman, which is what they could use. That they could absolutely use a guy. I forget his name. They drafted him from. They signed him from. I think he was with Arizona last year. He's more of a defensive rushing interior defensive lineman. They could use a little bit more depth there, though.
Yeah.
So now we're going to sit here on 220. So this is again, we're just throwing best available. We could go special teams. We could go kicker. Is there anyone here that you guys like? Do you like to go kicker here? Is there anyone specific that you love?
I mean, they do need a kicker. Out of curiosity, what does the quarterback room look like? Because I wonder if they would draft somebody late. Like he's not going to be there.
I think it would be one of these two guys.
Yeah, like there's a couple of guys late. Like I don't know if he's going to be there in the 7th round. Kevin, is it Rourke, the kid from Indiana?
I think he's gonna be like a 6th or 5th round guy.
Okay.
I'm a Max Brosman guy. I think that he's a guy that could stick around in the league and be like a really solid backup. I think this is kind of his biggest downfall right here. Like he's small, he's not overly big. 6'2" isn't too bad, but 225 obviously isn't very much. But he's older, 24 already. He doesn't have a ton of arm talent, but like he's pretty efficient. So he reminds me of like a backup that could come in and win you a game if you really need to.
I will say somebody that has his exact same build is he plays quarterback in Kansas City and he's pretty good. Now, granted, Patrick Mahomes is 6'2", 225. Now, granted, we're talking about that guy.
Mahomes is a lot more mobile.
Yeah. But I was just more or less thinking the size, like he's fine for a backup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The size isn't like too much of a worry. It's more like he doesn't have a ton of arm talent, but he's pretty accurate. Like he's pretty efficient. He took some good steps this year. I don't know. Yeah, you can kind of see right here. So he's jumped up right here all 3 years. That's a nice, decent progression in his yardage. And not that this is anything special, but he doesn't make a ton of mistakes.
I was gonna say he also plays in Minnesota. Like Minnesota's not lighting. They're not lighting up the scoreboard.
Yeah. So at here, I would say the most likely spot. I like a Malachi Moore at this late, but they already went safety, obviously. I like Theo Wise Jr. as a late round flyer. He is, he's kind of a deep ball guy, 60 catches, 884 yards, 14.7 yards a catch. That's, pretty notable. That's a lot for a guy. Afton Chisholm, I think when he's been connected to the Patriots, as a guy that fits. Holland Pierce is a wild card. That guy's going to go. I think he's going to go earlier. He's a big dude, 6'8". Holy monster.
And not only 6'8", but he's 345. That's not. Trent Brown's a little heavier than that, but you're talking about a guy who's encroaching.
He's
on
a
Trent
big
Brown
dude.
Territory.
I think he's going to get a guy. He's going to get a team that's going to try to mold him into a good player.
If Bill was here, he would take. If Bill was still here, he would take him in the 2nd round. He loves his offense. Anybody that wore a Rutgers uniform.
I don't want to dive too deep, so let's come back up here. My vote here would probably be to go kicker. This is early 7, so you're looking at that scenario where you say, all right, let's go get our top kicker. Ryan Fitzgerald's going to have a workout for them. So he was right here, 13-14, 14 on extra points.
My only concern, so to me, he's would be my top-rated kicker. I like Fitzgerald. The problem is he was not good from medium distance for Florida State last year.
Yeah, so this is a guy. This is my top kicker, and I don't really say that with a lot of confidence because I don't look into kickers that much. But 18 for 19. This is the little bit of a worry, but ultimately, he hit from 55, so he's got that leg length. He was perfect from extra points, which isn't a big deal, but so be it. I heard that Springer himself, Jeremy Springer, the Patriots special team coordinator, spent time with him. Let's go kicker here, and we can finish it up at 238. And really, it's just like a flyer, whatever name we kind of like at that point. Is there any guy back here, Ben, Zach, that you guys have
I thought
found
I
to
saw
like?
Shmael Munden, right there, 2 down a little bit. Linebacker from Georgia.
Okay. I don't know if they have a mock up right here. Oh yes. This guy can move, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, he's quick.
Yeah.
That says it right there. But if he's fast, he can move. But like if he can kind of like process the game a bit more, I think he'll be a pretty solid
All
player.
right. Let's fuck it. Let's send it. All right. Let's end it with small.
I don't know how to pronounce his name, but there we go. Shmael Munden.
Shmael Munden Jr.
Schmeagle.
So we'll finish that. Yeah, we'll finish that here with the Patriots mock draft here. Rtb Mock Draft 1.0 if it plays out. Yep, right here. Boys, I mean, like if they walked away with this, like Jalen Noel, do I look at him as a bona fide one? No, but I think it could be a really good wide receiver in the NFL. I would, as a whole, be pretty content with this. I think it kind of sits at Campbell. Like I don't love Campbell at that spot, but I'm okay with it. I like Nick Scorton. I like Noel. I'm a big Mukaba guy at that point of the draft. I think Jaden Blue can be pretty productive. And then, Ben, you are obviously a fan of Logan Brown. And then we finish it off here. Would you guys be happy, content, thrilled, sad? But how are you feeling about this draft overall?
I mean, those first 5 rounds are solid. I think if you end up those, like you kind of answered every question we have, every question mark for sure on the team. And obviously, especially Will Campbell, I agree, is maybe a bit of a reach potentially. I don't know how much of a reach, but like if we end up with something like this, I'd be pretty excited heading into the OTAs and off season or spring.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that. I mean, we can sit here and say that, I could trade every single one of those picks and get like an A+ drafted, but again, it's just an unrealistic expectation. I would say like realistically, the only thing that kind of makes that like into the A range for me is if they're somehow able to land like a Jaden Higgins or a Trey Harris in that 3rd round spot. Or if they're able to make a little bit of a miniature move and move up into like the late 2nd if one of them is still there. But at that point, you're kind of splitting hairs. I mean, with that mock, Matt, I don't know if you saved it and for putting it up on social, but I mean, if they walked away with those those first 5 picks, I mean, you solidify your offensive line on both sides. You're adding skill position players, and you have a legitimate edge rushing prospect who can bring an aspect to the defense that we have lacked for a long time. And then after that, it's flyers on guys that you hope you can hit on. There would certainly be a faction of Pats fans that would poo-poo that draft a lot. But if you're being honest with yourself,
there's a percentage of Pats fans that would poo-poo any draft.
Yeah.
They could draft all their favorite players and they'll still poo-poo it.
Yeah, because they either they forgot to trade up or they traded down and got lucky. Yeah. But I mean, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. As a whole, I'd be pretty happy. I can't complain about that altogether. Like I said, you landed. I think your plan is to land your left tackle of the future there at Campbell. You land a guy at Scorton who I don't know if he'll ever be a stud, although he's got that ability. But I think he'll be a really good player overall. And then, like you said, you got Noel sitting there. I think he's a pretty good player. You got Mukaba, who I think could be a starting free safety. Blue could be a weapon. And then you draft for depth, and ideally you can maybe even land your kicker early in the draft. So I'll be pretty happy. So, all right, let's finish this up. We won't do state your takes this week. We've been on here long enough, to say the least.
State your take. That'll be how the Patriots draft board looks.
That exact outcome. That will be the picks.
If we pull that off, we're going to be usurping the Felger Maz big board.
Yeah, we will be the next Felger. All right. Until next time, we appreciate you listening. We'll be back next week with RTB 2.0. We'll mix it around. Maybe we'll do a trade back in the first round. But until then, we appreciate you listening. As always, we'll raise the banner. Thanks for listening.
Have a good night.